Welcome back. Thanks so much for staying with us. Television host Bill O'Reilly's reign as the top-rated host in cable news came to an unspectacular end on Wednesday, with Fox News removing him from the channel. This came about after a disclosure of a series of sexual harassment allegations against him. A subsequent investigation done internally reportedly threw up many more allegations. We've got none other than American broadcast journalist Jim Clancy joining us on the broadcast to talk more about that. But before we go across to Jim, let's take a look at this report we filed for you.
Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight.
The most powerful man in the media industry, with an illustrious career of 20 decades. Bill O'Reilly finally felt the heat when his long-term association with Fox News came to an embarrassing end. The cable news forced Riley out after the disclosure of several sexual harassment allegations against him. The date was April 1, when an article from a popular daily changed Riley's world. The article revealed how Fox News and its parent company, 21st Century Fox, had repeatedly stood by him even after the company reached a settlement with 5 women who complained about sexual harassment by him. The agreement totaled a whopping $13 million. After reports against Riley, more than 50 advertisers pulled out of his popular show, and many women's rights groups had asked for him to be fired. Even inside the company, women expressed outrage over Riley's association with the channel. Fox's founder Rupert Murdoch made his final call after an internal investigation. What made the entire episode more interesting was the way Riley was made to see the door. The news of Riley's ouster came when he was on a vacation in Italy. Riley's exit was dramatic. But Fox News has seen this before. Roger E. Ailes, the former chairman of Fox News, had to face the same sexual harassment allegations and was asked to leave the company. Calling it tremendously disheartening, Riley was quick enough to showcase his displeasure at being forced out of Fox. Considering the amount of publicity Riley gave to the channel, it will be interesting to see how the new host, Tucker Carlson, will handle the reins. Pragya Devan, WION.
You are about to enter the no spin zone.
So to talk more about O'Reilly's ouster, I am joined on the broadcast by Jim Clancy, American broadcast journalist who's joining in from Atlanta. Good evening, Jim. Thanks so much for joining in on our program. First up, can I just ask you your thoughts on Mr. O'Reilly's ouster? Was it long overdue, in your opinion?
I don't know whether it was long overdue. I mean, he was a very controversial figure. His ouster comes as something of a bombshell because he was such a big money maker. But for most of us, I think when we look at this story, look at it through the eyes of what did it? What accomplished this monumental feat? It was journalism with a capital J, the kind of journalism that investigated the case of Roger Ailes and of Bill O'Reilly and found that there had been $35 million in payments to women that had been swept under the carpet and more or less hidden in the corporate accounts in order to accommodate the fact that they were accused of sexual harassment. It was journalism that brought down Bill O'Reilly, who never really much pretended to be a real journalist. Aisha?
Jim, do you feel that you're talking about these payments being sort of swept under the carpet? Do you think that that has done more damage to Fox's credibility than the actual allegations that were made against Mr. O'Reilly?
Well, they go hand in hand, don't they? And the point here is that inside Fox News, there was an entire organization that seemed to be set up to harass women. It seemed to be systematic. It seemed to be something bigger than just one case and one individual. And the things that people were told, the stories that the women of Fox News have come out and told us now, are really, they're fundamentally shaking to any kind of faith you should have in the trust of a corporation that would not only tolerate this, but shield it from public view so that they couldn't see the dimensions of it all. This is what's going to hurt Fox News.
Do you think, though, Jim, if I can ask you, are these kinds of allegations too often associated with media outlets, media houses, not just in the United States, but elsewhere? And does that cause a lot of concern to you as a journalist, that is the kind of reading in that people have when it comes to television news networks of the kind that Fox is?
Aisha, you're a journalist, you're in the broadcast business. We all know that personalities develop, egos develop behind the scenes that I don't think the viewers really get a good take on. And I think that it's pretty common in the entertainment industry to find these kinds of individuals who are blossoming. And once you're like a Bill O'Reilly and you're bringing in billions of dollars for your network, you seem untouchable. The viewers love you. You have the highest rated show on cable news in the entire United States. There's a sense of endowment. There's a sense of power that comes to these individuals. And they think they can get away with anything. They can't.
But if we want to look for a silver lining on this dark cloud, when you're looking at other cases, other high-profile cases, is it safe to assume that there is now lesser tolerance for sexual harassment at the workplace, or is that looking at it with rose-tinted glasses?
Well, I think that's a little bit of the rose-tinted glasses because, you know, this all came out during the campaign of Donald Trump.
Absolutely.
And there were accusations against him about the comments that he made that were recorded. And, you know, a lot of his followers just sloughed it off. Now Fox viewers who've stood by Bill O'Reilly amid all of the allegations, there's a sense now that what will Fox News do? Tucker Carlson has been promoted as the man who will take his slot. Tucker Carlson isn't nearly what Bill O'Reilly was. But Bill O'Reilly wasn't nearly what he seemed to be either. We're just going to have to wait and see whether Fox recovers from this. Other organizations are certainly going to take note, but I think they already had. I think that others were addressing this kind of a problem, and nobody thought that the Ailes O'Reilly axis, if you want to call it that, could have lasted so long inside any news organization.
Okay.
Aisha?
Okay, stay with me, Jim. I just want to take our viewers through some of the comments that have come forward after news of Mr. O'Reilly's ouster broke. We've heard statements from people on the street and Stephen Colbert as well. But first, let's hear what the common man had to say.
We are so happy that he is gone and he's no longer going to be able to spit all of his vile comments and everything that comes out of his mouth that's disparaging not only to women, but specifically to black women and to black folks all over the world. So we're very happy to see that he'll be off the air, but we're not.
Okay, so one woman there, very happy to hear that he is going to be off the air. Let's also, on that note, listen into one of Mr. O'Reilly's harshest critics, Stephen Colbert, how he summed up his departure, so to speak, from Fox News.
It's not that big of a surprise, I guess, you know? We all saw this coming at us, you know, like an old man cornering an intern in the break room. O'Reilly has been accused of sexual harassment for years. And was this yesterday? Just yesterday, an African-American woman at Fox came forward claiming O'Reilly used to leer at her and call her hot chocolate. I know what you're saying. That's really sexist. Yeah. But remember, it's also pretty racist. Now, while all this has been blowing up here back, you know, stateside, O'Reilly's been vacationing in Italy. And just this morning was spotted shaking hands with the Pope. Things were going great until O'Reilly called him white chocolate. It's a pet name. It's a pet name. O'Reilly.
All right, Jim, late night's obviously going to have a field day following O'Reilly's departure. But just going by what Stephen Colbert mentioned, there were such recent allegations of him calling an African-American employee hot chocolate. Do you think that more skeletons are going to tumble out of the closet? We're going to hear more statements and that this isn't just the end of it?
They possibly could. We don't have any indications of that right now. I'm sure that there are a lot of people in the entertainment industry that are eyeing this case and wondering, should I call the boss? Should I report this guy? And I think there's a lot of guys that are saying, ooh, I'm going to have to change my tone voice around the office. But, you know, Bill O'Reilly, and you heard it from that woman on the street, he represented, I mean, the left, the liberals, the progressives hated him because he would very smugly put forward a case. One of his favorites was, you know, everybody was out to kill Christmas, and he was going to stand up for it. He was very, very white and conservative, and he made a lot of people feel good. That's why he had so many viewers. What happens now is important, but it's also important to remember that, you know, there was an NBC anchor who lost his job, Brian Williams, because of a story that he told that wasn't true. He wasn't on a helicopter that was fired upon. And he claimed that he was. Well, Bill O'Reilly came out and made, you know, his war zone, his war correspondent stories public, and they weren't true either. But he survived that completely unscathed. Aisha?
Right. In fact, Jim, you mentioned Mr. Donald Trump a little while earlier, and you know the video footage that came out saw even the anchor, I'm forgetting his name, or the presenter who was with Mr. Trump in that video. Even he lost his job. But speaking of Donald Trump, when the allegations against Bill O'Reilly came to light, the U.S. president did come in to defend him. In an interview, Trump said, and I quote, "I think he's a person I know well. He is a good person. Think he shouldn't have settled. Personally, I think he shouldn't have settled because you should have taken it all the way. I don't think Bill did anything wrong." End quote. President Donald Trump, of course, made that statement to New York Times. So an interesting person backing Bill up. What do you say, Jim?
Well, you know, the rich guys are circling the wagons. The rich guys are saying, oh, look, I'm a target, and every good-looking woman comes on to me, and then if they don't get what they want out of me, they file a charge. And how can I defend myself? You know, what can I do? And that's their only defense that they have. And it's not holding up with women's rights groups. It's not holding up with the politicians. I don't think it's holding up with the public. We're going to have to wait and see what happens to his show. We're going to have to wait and see what happens with Fox News, because remember, one of the people that accused him of sexual improprieties was Megan Fox, the rising star, not Megan Fox, Megyn Kelly, the rising star of Fox News.
Right.
And she left the network, went to MSNBC or went to NBC. As a result of that, Fox has a hole in the lineup. There's a lot of what I would call B-level anchors that are standing there waiting in line, but nobody that has the real catch that a Bill O'Reilly or a Megyn Kelly had.
Okay, so we'll have to wait and watch. But just to go back to the Donald Trump factor, Jim, do you feel that a statement such as this from the President of the United States, no less, actually sort of props up this kind of bad behavior, that it gives it some kind of legitimacy?
Well, he's using the same excuse as Bill O'Reilly. I mean, his excuse, well, this was locker room talk, and, you know, we're all targets. That's the same thing that Trump was saying about when allegations were made against him. And remember, some of those allegations are still out there. But of course it sends the wrong message. But that doesn't surprise women's groups who have been not only vocal, but vociferous in their opposition to Mr. Trump, specifically on his attitude towards women.
In fact, when those allegations against President Trump had come up, Jim, when that video went public, his wife Melania Trump had done an interview in which she said that, you know, this is locker room talk. She used the exact same phrase that you just mentioned. Do you think this is also part of this white boys club in the United States, that there is, you know, this jock culture that tends to be propped up by icons, so to speak, such as Bill O'Reilly, Donald Trump, and others?
Well, you know, I think there's some truth to that, no doubt about it. White Boys Club, I think that women in every country, no matter their color, will tell you that they come up for harassment from these big egos, I'll call them, the people that have reached star status. And it crosses all kinds of sexual lines. It crosses all kinds of etiquette lines, certainly. So you can't really put it in a cubbyhole. You have to understand that it's really power. It's really power that creates this kind of an atmosphere in which people feel that they can get away with mistreating women, with abusing them, with forcing them into relationships they don't want, holding out the promise of some job promotion. You have to have power to hold those kinds of things out. And that's apparently what they did, and now they've been undone. I'm not surprised by it. I don't think anybody is. I'm not going to celebrate the demise of Bill O'Reilly, but I'll just tell you that as a journalist, he left a lot to be desired. His show was one of the things that defined Fox News as really a GOP talk channel, a channel that talked about the news. They didn't really report it.
Okay, and definitely a big counterweight to some of the more liberal networks, if you will. I know that Bill O'Reilly did have these settlements with the women who made these allegations. But speaking of legal repercussions, Jim, if you could give our viewers here in India and South Asia an idea of how sexual harassment cases are handled in the United States. Is there a standard policy, or do these issues, or are they looked at differently from state to state? If I can ask you to answer that for me.
I think in the United States there's a greater tendency to settle. In other words, don't drag the network through the courts. It's just more bad publicity as each detail is reported. Therefore, what you want to do is settle for as little as possible with the people who are your accusers. Now, that's been the pattern, and that's why we've got a bill of $35 million over at Fox. Will Fox News continue to pay for the defense of Bill O'Reilly to settle his cases? Because remember, Fox News can be named in a suit as well as Bill O'Reilly, saying that Fox News perpetuated an atmosphere. And I think this is what the attorneys are really worried about. If it can be shown that the news network itself, with Roger Ailes and what he was doing, the man at the top, the man in charge, and Bill O'Reilly, their lead anchor, more or less working together against the women within the network, all of this stuff in court is devastating. So the lawyers want to settle. They want to settle as soon as they can for as little as they can. We'll have to wait and see whether Fox News will continue to pay the bill for Bill O'Reilly.
All right. I liked what you did there, Jim, but thanks so much. I understand we're running out of time on this segment, but I really appreciate you joining us here on WION with your thoughts on that story. Thanks for taking out the time.